Hello, I'm Dr. Bill Waggoner. Welcome to this week's Tuesday Tip. This week is part 2 of my responding to bad Google reviews. If you didn't watch last week's Tuesday Tip, it might be best if you went back and viewed that one before watching this week. Last week I told you that in April we received a 1-star review, and I read that review to you as well as giving you some background from our office staff's perspective. This week I'll reread the review, then read you my response, and then give some tips on do's and don'ts when responding. I also want to give the same disclaimer that I did last week, and that is, I am not an expert in social media response. But I do think that there are some general guidelines that may be helpful for you. Okay, so here is her review. If I could rate them no stars, I would. I was racially profiled and refused service for simply asking a question. The women here, including the dentist, have horrible customer service. The dentist has no patience for kids. She was very rude. Her staff is worse. They wouldn't greet me. I was kicked out for asking why I wasn't informed about a price change before I was told to come back for a second appointment on the same day. When I asked the woman to explain, she told me if I didn't like it, I could go somewhere else. She snatched the payment information from me and told me to go. I hate that I wasted my entire day surrounded by such ugly individuals. Wow, pretty wicked review, huh? I hope that if you didn't see last week's Tuesday's tip, you will go back and listen to it, because in that I explained a little bit about the appointment from our standpoint, which led to her giving us that review. Before I share my response, let me clarify that I wasn't involved in the interactions at all. I wasn't in the office, so I was informed the next day by my office manager and by the doctor who had been working. Also, let me say that I realize that people's perceptions can become their reality. So I have to consider that there could be something behind this mother's perceptions. The difficulty for me is that 3 different staff members interacted with this mom, and they all had distinctly different observations of the interactions than she did. It can cause a pause that maybe this individual was upset that she didn't get her way and she was venting. Additionally, the 3 individuals that she primarily dealt with are not the type to let rude people cause them to respond in kind. So now I want to share my response to her review. We are undoubtedly concerned that you felt racially profiled in our office, as for years our employees have been multicultural, including Hispanics, African Americans, Middle Eastern, and Asian Americans. We place a high value on communication and setting what we feel are appropriate expectations on our ability to complete treatment with high quality while maintaining as positive an experience for the child as possible, especially if it primarily involves cosmetic services. It seems apparent that our recommendations and attempts to set expectations were not in line with your desires. So in instances such as this, we feel that the parent should seek an office that falls more in line with their desires and expectations. In these instances, we make it a policy to provide our consultation at no charge and provide copies of our charting, which we did for you. I hope you were able to find an office that better meets your and your child's needs. So I don't know if this is a good response, a mediocre response, or a bad response. However, it's the response I came up with without spending a half a day constructing it. I will say that while preparing this Tuesday tip, I found an article on do's and don'ts to responding to negative reviews. Based on those tips, I think I did fairly well. So let me share with you those 6 tips. The first tip wasn't actually in the article, but we all know it. You have to be aware of HIPAA. You should not discuss patient information or treatment in a review response unless the reviewer mentioned it first. If someone says, "The crowns you did look terrible," you can reference those crowns in your response. But you can't say, well, your child had 17 cavities that required extensive, difficult work. Tip number 2, acknowledge the issue. This can be as simple as saying, thank you for bringing this to our attention, or in my case, we are undoubtedly concerned that you felt a certain way. Tip number 3, apologize. Even if you feel you were in the right, apologize for the misunderstanding or for the poor communication or for not meeting their expectations. Tip number 4, provide an explanation if necessary, but don't make excuses. Take responsibility. Consider offering advice on how they might re-engage with your business. Tip number 5, consider offering some type of compensation. This could be a discount on their next service or some type of VIP service like priority scheduling. Tip number 6, invite the reviewer to discuss the matter offline. Your willingness to listen further may rebuild a relationship, if you want to rebuild the relationship. Always take the high road with your responses. Consider that you're really writing your response as much, if not more, to all of the people who may read that 1-star review than you are responding to the actual complainer. In my response, I indicated a concern for how she felt treated. I tried to emphasize our desire for good communication and setting appropriate expectations. In this instance, I recognized that our expectations were not in alignment, so I suggested she try to find some place with better alignment. Finally, I tried to indicate that in situations like this, we don't charge and we hope to facilitate her finding a more suitable fit with another office. My response would have been different if I actually wanted to attempt to salvage the relationship rather than salvage the reputation of my office. But I really had no desire to have this woman return. I don't think we could ever make her happy. If we were sitting in a room, I'm sure that you and I could discuss this for a long time. But you know what? I'm out of time. So I hope these tips have been helpful. Thank you for listening, and I hope I'll see you again next week.